How can we trick the eye and mind of the viewer into an emotional experience of peering into the dark?
You can very easily take an incident meter reading of something and take a spot meter reading of it and get two different readings.
It's nice to be like behind the camera and being the one who's seeing the film and being able to react.
Our whole purpose is to create something on the screen and make it look like we're not doing anything.
If you're not critiquing your own work and you think that your work is perfect, you're doing something wrong.
Would you try and shape the experience of the audience by creating an intentionally darker moment with the talent of the actor?
I think so. I mean, to convey mystery or suspense or anything like that, hide some elements in the frame.
I think you guys would agree that probably being a DP is like the best job.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the best job on the crew. I mean, you speak and things happen. It's unbelievable.
I decided a first subject that we should talk about as cinematographers is how do you light a night exterior or a low light scene? I've found one of my greatest challenges is to create the illusion of a night and darkness while still creating an image free from grain or noise. How can we trick the eye and mind of the viewer into an emotional experience of peering into the dark? With this question in mind, I've invited 3 cinematographers to show us 3 different examples captured with, I guess they're not exactly 3 different cameras, but 3 different styles and technology and 3 different levels of budget, crew, and practical experience. So now I'll read their bios. You guys ready for the bios? Yeah. A little tap dancing first. So Ray Preziosi is an Emmy-nominated director of photography with a career spanning feature films, nationally televised documentaries, streaming series, and short films, working in both 35mm and digital formats. He's known for shooting the title sequences for Casino and A River Runs Through It. He also teaches 35mm cinematography at the New York Film Academy, and most importantly, serves as a volunteer firefighter in his hometown of Rosendale, New York.
Yeah.
Give it up for Ray! Claudio Rietti, Brazilian-born, New York-based cinematographer whose work spans acclaimed television series and award-winning documentaries, with credits including Rami on Hulu, The Equalizer, CBS, Love Life, HBO Max, as well as the South by Southwest Audience Award-winning, how do you say it? McFetridge?
McFetridge. Yeah.
Jeff McFetridge, Drawing a Life. He is known for his versatile visual style and dedication to storytelling. And I gotta say, when I met him, he was like, yeah, I took over Rami season 2, not to throw any shade on anybody, but I watched the beginning of season 2 and they showed clips from season 1 and then season 2, and I was like, oh, yeah, I could see you took over. So props to you. Steven Turco is a Hudson Valley-based cinematographer and good friends with one of my favorite guys, Ethan Harrison. After growing up in the Hudson Valley, he studied film in Chicago and spent the last several years working in Local 52 on many productions, including Fallout, Happy Gilmore 2, and Severance. He shot the short America, which had a short festival run, and the docu-short Keep Right Except to Pass. So those are the guys. This is the stage. I was trying to decide what's the best way to go about having this conversation about film. 3 clips, 3 people. So it might be a little, it's the first time I've ever done anything like this also. So I kind of thought, well, let's watch. Each cinematographer can explain what we're about to see. We'll see it. Next cinematographer, we'll watch all 3 kind of in a row. And then afterwards, we can have the discussion. They can go more in depth after that. We'll see if that works. If it doesn't work, we'll do it differently next time. And then afterwards, we've already been networking, but we can do a little more. I was able to pick up some Rolling Rock. I don't know if anyone tried that. Pretty amazing. So, you ready, Steven?
Yeah.
All right, your turn.
So we're showing a clip from Broken Bond. I shot it years ago. Exterior scene of them. It's like a heist film, and it's like this guy's doing one last heist with his partner who's a little more into it than him. Yeah.
Can you flip the lights for us? It's important to have proper lighting when you're looking at cinema. Great.
What's happening? I swear.
How'd you find this place?
I've been walking around this area for the past few weeks.
Waiting for your laundry?
Yeah.
Great.
Stop here. Ready?
What the fuck was that house, Sean? You're trying to get us killed? You meant this so. You were gonna kill that girl.
Oh, no, I wasn't gonna pull the trigger. I'm not fucking stupid.
See, that's where we're missing Ray.
I want my money.
Get out. Get out!
All right, cool. All right. Hold your questions. Hold your questions. All right, Claudia, can you go next?
Yeah. Which one are we looking at?
We got both. Which one do you want to show first? We have the Equalizer and then Rami.
What do you got lined up, Tara?
Equalizer?
Let's do Equalizer then.
Right.
Yeah. I think the scene we're showing, we had to shoot at a tarmac, and we were at night in Marseille was what it was scripted, but we went and scouted a whole bunch of places, and just due to the time that we had and the budget, mostly the time that we had, we kind of had to be a little more creative, and we ended up shooting it in the parking lot of MetLife Stadium, or that area where we're actually the stages where we were shooting in. So the background is actually a 40-foot green screen that we comped in, and then everything else we just kind of shot with long lenses to kind of hide the fact that we weren't at an airport.
Very cool. Lights and cinema.
Where they are.
Did you rendezvous with the extraction team?
I'm meeting with them now. I'm going radio silent. I'll call you as soon as I can.
Hey, Rob, just be careful.
Yeah. Cold word.
Arachnoid.
Mahogany. We all set up?
Now we have location and tag here for you in the vehicle.
Okay, we have less than an hour to get to the meeting. We'll make it?
Yes, ma'am. We'll get you there.
Let's go! Move it! On the clock, let's go!
Allison. Of course, I betrayed you. Still warm. Give me a reason. Put it down. David, you're alive? Untie him.
Nicole, what the hell are you doing here? Not so fast! Ah! Son of a bitch! Let me go! After you give me the go! Gun down! Slide it over, now! One less man to pay. I know you. You're a CIA legend. You took out many of my brethren.
I'm sure they all had it coming.
Good luck. Looks like you're wanted alive.
Cool. Yeah. Ray?
Okay. All right. Now for something completely different.
Oh, I'm sorry. You want to let's show Rami too. Yeah,
Okay.
totally. My bad.
It's up to you, man.
No, I'd like to. I'd love to. Yeah, because there's some like a. So we're gonna show a clip from the Hulu show Rami also.
Yeah, so the clip is Rami and Mahershala Ali are looking for a dog that Rami lost. I don't know if you guys have seen the show, but Rami's a total fuck up and he keeps on just making mistake after mistake, the same one after another. And we shot in the coldest night that I've ever shot in. I think it was something like negative 20 degrees or something like that. It was insane. Wow. And so I think that really slowed things down a lot. But anyway, here we go.
I'm sorry, I feel like this is all my fault. Like all the bad attention to the center and this whole day, it's just... Maybe we should just go back. I don't think we're gonna find anything on this track.
What about the dog, Rami?
Look, how do we even know the dog's real? All right, Dennis hasn't been on his meds. He just talks about a bunch of stuff, and I've never even seen it.
You have to see something in order for it to be real. Let's make your shit.
Like right now? Just because we don't have like a mat or anything.
Where's the cooler?
That way. Oh yeah. The thing is, I don't have any water to make wudu, and I farted back there when we were walking, so I don't even have wudu because of the fart.
Look at everything as a blessing or a curse, Rami. Truth is, everything is both. We have to see the blessings and the curses. I mean, wary of the curses and the blessings. Both are from God. Both are an opportunity. What if the search for Boomer isn't the burden you think it is? What if it's a chance? A chance to take responsibility for your actions instead of making excuses. Tayyum. We don't need water. Say Bismillah. Comment.
You want me to? الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الله أكبر. Locked? Oh, she's like covered in shit. What if we, what if we break open the window? No?
There's a lock.
Come on. Oh. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Let's get it cleaned up. Come on. Come on.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Very nice. Okay, and our third panelist, Ray.
Okay. So now, as I said, something completely different, because when Rob asked me to show clips from 35 millimeter feature films that I've shot, now I haven't shot anything on 35 feature film wise. The last thing I did was in 2005. I was a second unit DP on a picture called Greetings from the Shore, and I remember doing a sunset and at the last shot of this particular thing, and I was thinking to myself, well, this could be the last time I'm going to be shooting on 35, which so far it's true. So what I have is 3 clips from films that I shot in the 90s. And so at that time, the transfer to tape was the standard NTSC interlaced transfer to a TV screen that was, this big, right? It was never intended to be projected to even that size at all. And so even though I did have the D2 at that time, which was the digital tape that was like the high end at the time, that wasn't really available to me for this. So what you're going to see is from half-inch VHS tapes and DVD discs. So it's going to be a little fuzzy. You should never make excuses. Never, if you're going to show something, never make excuses, except in this case. Right. So it's three little clips from
you ready?
From those movies.
Yeah, cool. So let's do the lights and the projector.
So it's silent. And this was a crane shot in the days when we used to put 2 people up in the air, a manned flight. So I asked Rob if it was okay to show a bigger location, and so this was
night interior.
Night interior was actually.
Ray, what was your ISO, aka ASA?
In those days, 500
500.
was the ASA T-grain technology at the time, which was pretty good.
What f-stop were you shooting at?
I usually don't like to go below 2.8.
2.8.
Sometimes a 2.5, but okay, that was the first one.
Would this be like the Panavision 11:1, or were you on primes?
This was on primes. I shot that movie with 3 primes.
Nice.
3 primes.
What focal lengths?
35, a 50, and a 75. So this was Frog and Womp.
One of the best names ever.
That's Wombat, that's Frog.
This is awesome.
Of course, I always use a black Pro Mist filter, but you really can't, you can't really tell what I'm using here. Okay, so of course Lindsay Wagner here is way overlit, but that's because she's Lindsay Wagner and she was concerned. So. She had a show called The Bionic Woman. I don't know if anybody remember that.
Oh, yeah.
See, the kid's lit properly.
Right. Are you mixing like tungsten and HMI, or doing tungsten with blue gel?
Tungsten and HMI usually. Yes. So like that little streak of light on the building, that was a tungsten light, what I remember. Had the big HMI way back, hitting the fence and the bushes and bounce cards for.
So that's just an uncorrected 18K back there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. And then she steps into the light here.
Yeah, nice.
And the classic 3/4 back cross key right there.
Are they up to mischief?
Yeah, they're solving a mystery.
All right.
Right. So it's amazing that even kids can solve mysteries. It's really, and the last piece. We shot this whole film in this one big, beautiful Victorian house in Petaluma, California. Again, this is a crane. That was a crane with people riding on it. And the lightning strikes machine we had. That.
How would you meter the lightning strikes? Did you have like a flash meter?
No, I didn't. We flashed it. Looked at my incident meter, and just where needle landed, that's where.
Whoa.
What the?
Nice.
All right. I do have a couple of stills to go with
show
that.
Stills. Yeah.
Do you want?
Ray's got some stills.
All right. Some little, because Rob was talking about some old, equipment we don't use anymore. So.
Quick sidebar. I really impressed Sophie, who became my wife, because I was working as a focus puller on this French film called The Misadventures of Margaret. And we were up in a Titan crane on Lafayette and Broadway, shooting Brooke Shields in the sunset. And I was just dating Sophie, and she said, I'll come meet you after work and we'll get a drink. I was like, sounds great. So I told the AD, like, oh yeah, my wife's come by. Actually, she came, she said to the AD, oh, Rob's girlfriend is here. And they told this French cinematographer, and I had no idea. So he arranged to have me come out of the sky on this Titan crane at Broadway and Lafayette and appear at Sophie's feet. And then I guess it worked because we're still married.
The French. All right. So the only reason why I grabbed this picture, this was from Frog and Wombat, but that is my beloved Panavision Platinum Panaflex camera. This.
Is that Tibor?
No, that's David Payon.
Oh, okay.
David Payon and Bonnie Blake. It's my camera operator. It was that camera is just the user friendly and the way it was designed. I would consider it the best camera ever developed, film or digital.
It's very silent.
It's very silent,
Yeah.
very silent, very well designed. It's really designed for camera assistance to pull focus. So this is the crane on that street where we shot that coming down towards our talent. You can just next. You can hit it again.
Oh, there's no.
Again, this a crane that used for that shot with the in front of the church. You see a little bounce card happening there. That's in the crane again. Another shot of the crane with the camera. That's in the church. Again, my favorite Panaflex up there on the altar. This is the house, and that's the crane to get that shot. There they are. Once again, back on the same two, back on another movie. Dave Paone and Bonnie Blake.
He's got the zoomer.
And we got the zoom. That was
And
I shot that movie on the Primo 17 to 75. So,
This is his. Oh, can you go back? That's a zoom control. It looks like a kind of like a water gun. And to zoom, you pull the trigger.
and that's Todd Klein standing next to him, the key grip, who I've had on several films. Excellent key grip. Okay. That's the light that lit the house that you saw when we were going up as, I guess, 12K HMI there on the parallels. And that's it at night with my favorite camera.
Does it have a name? Does it have a name?
It doesn't, well, it's
Just
My favorite
kind of
camera.
my favorite camera. You see, the thing is, my problem is I've been spoiled with this camera because it's so well designed and works so well. You don't need a screwdriver, pliers, or any tools to put this camera together, just to show you how well designed it is. It really is. They did a great job designing this camera.
It also cost like 300 grand
Yeah.
at the time, right?
Well,
Can't
it's,
own it.
it's Panavision. So.
Can't own it.
And that's the shot where they're coming out of the house, the Panaflex on the ground there, and something about, I guess, a 9-light Fay. You remember that light?
Yep.
The 9-light?
Yep.
Yep.
So it was a 9-light into a 12x12 Grifkalon.
Cool, dude.
And that's it.
Right.
I believe so. Yes, they rigged the car to have the lights. The lights.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to circle back to Steven. I kind of wrote some prompts for talking about these sort of like night exteriors. So let's ask you some questions. Maybe you can.
Yeah.
So one thing is like, and if you guys can think back 20 minutes ago when we saw his clip, what were some of the challenges you faced in filming that? What were you thinking about? Were you worried about grain or noise? And did you have to take any steps to control the exposure in that way? And were the steps that you we specifically took? I think especially like that scene in the bedroom with the red.
Yeah.
Like was there or the person silhouetted in the hallway? Like I don't know if you could talk about that kind of stuff.
For the interior stuff, I mean, I just tried to shoot at base ISO to avoid grain, keep the fill up enough.
And
so
tell
we
us the
can-
camera and lenses you had.
The Alexa Classic and Cook S4s.
Okay.
I think we had like some Classic Soft.
And so what T-stop were you at?
I think we lived around a 2.8.
2.8. And what's the
Maybe.
native ISO? Is like 800 or?
Yeah, I think it's 800 for the Classic. But yeah, lighting that interior, we just had some lights screwed into the wall and baby plates and just for his edge. And I think the biggest challenge was we wanted to do that as a one take of him around the room, but we had to break it up because the red light wasn't strong enough to get him when he was like leaning against the wall at the end. So we had to adjust on the dimmer for that. And I mean, that one, as far as like keeping the values up, was not super hard because he had lighting everywhere. I mean, we
Lot
wanted
practical.
to silhouette him with the gun, and we had a little like light with the snoot.
Did you light it when you
For
had the
the-
sheets in the window? Were you like putting a source behind them?
No, I think that was just the sheets in the window. Yeah, that was. It was like a 3 or 4 story apartment, and that was the same light that we used for the outside, just all the way up on a Mambo,
Hitting it.
just hitting it through like maybe some diffusion, swaying in the wind. But yeah.
And when they're in the car and you're shooting like sort of that cross coverage, did you look, because they had that nice highlight on their car
So
side?
for the second car scene, we got to light it, but the first one, them going through the alley across the street, was tough, and we didn't have time, so we just kept it 2-shot from the back. And I think the only single we had of Sean before they get out had like a light on the ground. But the final car scene, we had just, I don't remember, like a tweenie or something rigged.
So when
on the
beginning when they're driving, you're just relying on the location, what lights you could find on location.
for the first
To
driving
illuminate.
scene, yeah.
And
So just let them silhouette, fall to black, and
wide open and hoping.
exactly.
So, Claudia, so when you did I'm interested in the Rami scene because it seems like you're using a lot of practical lights for that also, like the location lighting, and then maybe supplementing it for more.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. You know, I think Rami is a completely different budget than Equalizer, so definitely had to rely a lot on what was available there. But that scene in particular, the building that they're standing next to, we had access to the roof. So I was able to just line the entire length of that roof with light mats and some Licos.
Wow. So when they're walking along the railway line, that was lit by the...
That is lit by the light mats, yeah, and then some Licos to backlight them. That's a hard choice.
You have 18K and you have a light mat.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we actually we had a, what do we have? I think we had a 12K for the deep background on a 80-foot condor. But when we turned around and went to the car, we didn't have access to any of that background over there, so we just let that be, and everything on that side was lit from the ground. A lot of book lights and bounce.
Nice.
Yeah.
When they were praying and they had that nice kind of sodium vapor, did you do that with like gels or how did you create that?
Yeah. So the Licos we gelled. To
Okay.
look
So it was a
sodium
Lico
vapor.
from far away.
Yeah, from the top of the buildings.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Even for the close-ups.
Yep. I mean, we obviously brought in some lights for the close-ups, but Mahershala, obviously, because he's got a darker skin tone, it just reflects a lot more. So you see that it just like that Lico reflecting on his left cheek a lot more
Yeah, it was beautiful.
than on Rami. And then on Rami, I just brought in some diffusion and another light mat from the ground just to fill him in whenever we
Did you
needed.
worry about matching? Like, did you have a gel pack for sodium vapor, like a sodium vapor gel, or like how did you?
Yeah, we set all that up before. You know, had a really good gaffer, Andrew Hubbard. He was really on top of it.
Yeah, you know.
You know?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
great.
incredible, man. Yeah.
Cool.
Good dude. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And then when you did the Equalizer, that was like more big units and.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it depends on what we're doing. You know, I try to keep it as simple as I can. You know, I think the interiors, a lot of that was lit with tubes and small tungsten units, some sky panels. But yeah, for the exteriors, the 40 by was with some sky panel 120s for the green screen, and then some 10Ks and 20Ks from far away.
Okay.
But
Did you have
yeah.
a rain machine for when she's walking?
No, we just got lucky.
free
We
range.
just got really lucky. Yeah, and unlucky because it was miserable. But yeah, yeah,
That's production.
yeah.
And what cameras were those two?
Rami, we're on the Alexa Mini with S5s, 5 eyes. Season 2 I did S4s, and season 3 I did 5i, and then Equalizer we were on the Mini LF, multiple cameras, and I think I was on the DNAs, and then we had a whole bunch of zooms whenever we needed them.
Do you operate when you're doing a show with Equalizer?
I do not TV. I mean, if there's more than one camera, it's really hard. You know, like you need to keep an eye on both monitors.
Right.
You got to see what's happening. But if it's a single camera shoot, I like to operate.
Yeah.
I just did a low budget indie out in California, and I definitely operated on that. It's good. It's nice to be like behind the camera and being the one who's seeing the film and being able to react to the
You're
talent.
like the first person to see the film.
Yeah. But also it's like it's a dance with talent. You know what I mean? Like they move, you move,
Yeah.
you move, they move.
Yeah.
You know.
That's really cool. So when you did those night exteriors, the one I really liked in particular was the walking with you. I think it was a fence behind them.
Yeah.
And they come into the fill.
Yes.
And so my questions for you, if you could you kind of did it, right? Maybe walk us through how you would decide to pre-light during the day. What were the units? What was your exposure, lenses, and what were the flashlights? Were they just like practical? Did you have to goose them up to get them onto film?
No, I didn't have to goose up the flashlights, amazingly. But we did, as I said, we shot with 500 T Kodak stock. And
Vision 2 or Vision 1?
Maybe it was Vision, I don't remember now.
Yeah.
It was the 90s.
Vision 1 in the 90s.
Was it? All right. And so, well, when I first started as a camera assistant, we had 5247, which was, I heard, 5247, remember? ASA 100.
Yeah.
So 500 was tremendous.
Yeah.
Now again, what was a big help, of course, was with that Panaflex. All film cameras, right, can only open up to 180-degree shutter angle, whereas a Panaflex can open up to 200, right? So I got that little extra boost.
On the back.
Yes, we can open up to 200. So that alone, would sell you on that camera. And so I was using the, was it 17 to 17.5 to 775 Primo zoom?
Yeah.
Probably around a 2.8, because I usually like to give the camera assistant, some help there, keeping things in focus. Although this particular camera assistant, David Payon, is just brilliant. Brilliant. I've shot several movies with him. Maybe I got one couple of frames out of focus the whole time. It's brilliant. He was a brilliant guy. So we had I think I had the 6K HMI way in the back, hitting the fence and backlighting those bushes, and then them walking in and out of the pools of light, probably a 2K, like a Mighty Mole bounced into a card at two different locations, and so they walked in and out of, in and out of the light.
Mm-hmm. And how did you light the Bionic Woman to give her that nice? Soft, you have a big Chimera hanging just out of shot, or?
Well, yeah, she pretty much got the flat light all the time.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So I have any other questions for you guys? When you're creating this may be whoever feels like talking. When you're creating an image that's you want it to feel really dark, are there steps that you take in terms of composition or placing? They used to tell me a rule of thumb is if you want it to feel really dark, you have to put something bright in the shot, which David Mullen told me the other day. I was talking to David Mullen ASC the other day, and he told me that it's not true. So I don't know. What do you guys think of that? You want to say, Claudio?
Yeah, I mean, I always start with the key light, no matter what scene I'm lighting. If it's high key, low key, doesn't matter. But I turn everything off and just start with the key light, and then start bringing in the fill and background and backlight and everything like that. Mm-hmm. Just find it easier to control the exposure. But for me, darkness is about contrast. Mm-hmm. I personally like adding a little bit of a highlight in the background. Mm-hmm. I think it makes the blacks a little bit less muddy.
Yeah.
But not everybody's into that aesthetic.
I think the question for me is is it actually less muddy, or your iris just kind of stops down a little because you see that bright thing and it appears to be finer?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all perspective, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably right. I think it's probably an illusion of some sort.
Viewer's perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it's all about contrast for me, and it's I like underexposing skin tones. I don't think I need to have it at 60 IREs. I'm not afraid to go 30, 20, even lower if we need to.
How do you judge your exposures on a calibrated monitor?
Yeah, I use a bunch of tools. I use false color. I use waveform. I'll use my light meter to get contrast. If I'm going for a low key scene, it's got to be 6:1 on a contrast ratio, usually, or more. But yeah, for me, it's just all about contrast, really.
Sure. So, Steve, when you did yours, how did you monitor exposure in a?
I think it was just waveform on the monitor mostly. Okay. I want to say we had light meters, but it was we were young and waveform was good enough.
What you see is what you get.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you kind of like you like look at the monitor as you're lighting, and then kind of like build
Yeah,
it up
make
from-
sure that nothing's too crushed down there if we, so we're able to bring it up in post. And
I'll say this, that I don't know how you guys feel, but if I don't have a good monitor, especially for dark scenes, I second guess myself on the waveforms. I really need to have a good monitor that I trust.
Do you ever use like a -1 exposure LUT? Or,
Yes, throw an ND3 in the box,
Yeah.
light for that, and then pull it. Yeah, definitely. That just to eliminate noise.
yeah.
But you have to have trust in your team and
Right.
post production, and that
Right.
the studios or producers aren't gonna mess up your image. But
Right.
once you have trust in your team and your dailies colorist, use that a lot.
Ray, did you have any means of checking your exposure? Like we used to take Polaroids when I was lighting for film.
Right, yes. I never got into the Polaroids, although I know some DPs like doing that, which is, if it works, great.
Yeah. So
But-
would you use a spot meter and just sort of?
Yes, I would rely on the spot meter almost all the time, because obviously that's the light that's actually reflecting off whatever you're shooting.
Can you explain the difference between a spot meter and an incident meter,
I could.
please? Yeah.
An incident meter is it's a meter. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's got like a white ball on it, and it measures the light that's falling onto the subject. And a spot meter is the light that's reflected off of the subject, right? And so you have to understand, when you're using an incident meter, it's based on an 18% gray card, and so. Whatever you're holding it in front of, you've got to keep that in mind, because you can very easily take an incident meter reading of something and take a spot meter reading of it and get two different readings, right? The only time you're going to get the same reading is when you're taking a spot meter reading off the 18% gray card.
Would you look at it like, say you're lighting a scene, so there's a window and you'd spot it, say, okay, well that's 6 stops over, that's about as bright as I can let that go, or would you use it in a different way from that?
Well, I would, obviously I'm using it all the time for the talent and also the background.
Right.
The only time I usually pulled out that incident meter is if I'm doing a daytime exterior, would be usually when I would do that. For lamps and windows and stuff, I usually not want to go like 2.5 stops over my shooting stop, because then you start to lose it on film. And so with film, you always wanted to overexpose, right? So whatever I would meter, I would usually open up a half a stop, and then I'd get that extra bonus of the 200-degree shutter angle, and that would work out. And so, and a great help in knowing how to expose film was when we used to get film dailies, right? And so you'd get the film dailies, and then you would also get a list of numbers that would correspond to the shot that you're shooting, and that would tell you where you were on the negative in terms of your exposure. And I got one of my favorite film producers out here in the audience, Phil, knows this quite a bit as much as I do, in terms of there was at the lab, there would be a machine called a Hazeltine, and the color timer would put the negative on the machine and shine 3 lights through the negative, red, blue, and green. And based on how you expose the film, they would record the numbers between a range from 1 to 50. And not only would you get the dailies back, but you'd also get these numbers. And that would tell you where you were on the if you were exposing correctly or not. And so after you do that a while, you can almost predict your numbers, and then you really knew how to expose
It was
film.
like your waveform, it was just a day later.
Right, it was a day later, so it was all in your head.
Yeah. Prayer.
Way too late.
Yeah.
And sometimes,
No,
right,
sure,
right.
This is my final question, and we'll open it up to the floor. I have no idea what time it is. Are there any emotional things you guys think about when you're creating like a high key versus low key scene, or is, like I know there's like the reality of like this is a night scene, but like would you try and like shape the experience of the audience by creating an intentionally darker moment with the talent of the actor?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to convey mystery or like suspense or anything like that. Hide some elements in the frame. Yeah.
I think that absolutely. I mean, I think that's what cinematography is about, right? Is it creating emotion through light and shadow. But I think that modern audiences are maybe a little bit more developed. I don't think that the high key aesthetic isn't really around very much anymore. I think people favor realistic lighting over that high key for comedy. So that's kind of the approach that I took for Rami. I mean, it's a dark comedy, so I think that there was a little bit more of a leeway there, but my approach there was like, well, what realistically would this scene look like, I don't think realistically doing that scene that we just showed in a high key would have had the same effect.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you think part of that also is the technology? Like I know, from film 200 ASA to like a Alexa LF, like I think Bradford Young on Arrival started like just putting like blacks everywhere, and instead of like etching into like a thick negative like a print, you're removing light out of like a pretty bright chip, I guess, or sensor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Ray, how do you like use colors and light to shape emotion, trick the viewer to feeling what you want them to think?
Well, of course. I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Our whole purpose is to create something on the screen and make it look like we're not doing anything, of course. And so, yes, having that dark side to the camera, the night stuff, the dark stuff. If I almost never, for a night exterior, would use fill light, right? And so having that, but there does need to be something in the frame properly exposed. Even in the darkest of scenes, I think I like to have that something exposed properly.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I'm going to open it up to this fabulous audience. Anyone have questions? You can ask the guys, and I can answer. Hey, Lexi. Hey.
How much do you guys put emphasis on like viewers? This is a common argument I have with most people. Their TV settings in terms of like blast mode and exposure, and when people are actually watching this on their screens.
I mean, I'll say it's impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has a different setting on their TV screen, so you can't light for everybody's screen. So you light for the calibrated monitors that you have on set and how it's supposed to be. And eventually you learn to let go of what it looks like. You know what I mean? But that's, back in the day, when it used to be just you were filming for, a dark theater, it was a lot easier to not let go. But now you have to. It's like, like I'll watch something I shot at my parents' house and they like it super bright. I'm like, I gotta leave the room. It's like put on sunscreen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm amazed that we just got a new, my first ever big 4K TV, and there's 6 little settings I can click from I don't know, enthusiastic to moody,
Right.
and it's sort of and just me with my 6 buttons can make each thing look so different.
Yeah. Sport mode.
Yeah, sport mode. Yeah. Which is weird. Anyone else have a question out there? It's our chance. Yeah, sir.
This might be a heated one. Is there a pet peeve or common note or thing that you have with directors when they're trying to build the image or build things on set with you? We are live.
You want to go first?
Okay. All right. I suppose. My pet peeve, I guess, right off the top of my head, there might be a couple, but I, maintain that even keel. And that is directors that take too much time in the blocking phase with the actors. Because, blocking is really for just to move the actors around, demonstrate to the crew where things are going to be, right? And because they've already rehearsed the scene, they've been in pre-production, rehearsing it, so the actors already should know the scene. And this is not the time to be working with the talent to be creating their character, right? And so obviously, when the director takes too much time with the talent, what does that mean? Less time for the DP, and that the likely target is when we don't make the day, Who's the likely target?
Always the DP.
It's always the DP, right? So that would be my.
Yeah. No, that's a good point for sure. I mean, I think that you got to make friends with the AD in that point. You know?
Right. Yes, you do.
Like the AD is your best friend.
Yes.
And you work really closely with the AD.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the rule is you block, you light, you rehearse, and shoot. And then when they're done with the blocking, as you're lighting, they can go off and rehearse, right? And then bring them back to set with the lights. They can rehearse so that as the DP, you can tweak whatever you need. But yeah, I totally agree.
Good. I'm not the only one.
No.
Yeah, I agree too. The one I really love is like when you're putting a light up, say you're putting like a Fresnel up, and you ask your person to turn it on, and they're like, "Oh, this looks awful."
No,
yeah.
Everybody's got a monitor on set now, and everybody's a DP, and that's impossible sometimes.
Yay for DPs!
Right.
Yeah. No, like you'd be shooting a scene, and the producer comes out who hasn't been there the entire show, comes on set and looks at the monitor and he's like, "Oh, that looks dark." Like, yeah, the show is dark. Yeah.
I think less of a technical question, but I think nowadays a lot of people, or some people, work both in fiction and nonfiction, and they kind of use the term videographer and cinematographer interchangeably, but they could be very different, and some people even think videographer is made up. So I would love to get your opinions on, is it made up? Is there a difference? How do you guys differentiate that? Or do you care less about putting the label on it as a whole?
I've always thought of videographer as, I guess, more documentary or like a one-man band situation. And then, but title-wise, I don't mind either one.
I mean, I think I think the difference is in the name. It's somebody who creates images for cinema is a cinematographer, right? And I think there's oftentimes, probably a lot more that goes into being a cinematographer than a videographer. Not to downplay either of the roles, but that's just kind of how I've always seen as like videographer, like you said, somebody who's doing documentary style stuff, and less
team oriented.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I would go. I personally like director of photography.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
Simply that's, feature films, that's the title we've had for years and years and years. And although I do like Cinematographer Society, that I do like. but
It's like Alex Storaro said, we're cinematographers because we're telling stories with motion.
Yeah.
So try and please him. Every time I'm at work, I'm lighting for Storaro.
Do you ever get feedback?
Yeah, in my head.
We got a couple more.
yeah.
Okay, more questions.
Would you say it's easier to add or subtract to the scene when you're creating the images?
Light?
Yeah, like with the lighting. Does it depend on the script, or like is it your vision, the director's vision?
I don't think it's easier or more difficult. I think it's just depending on what the scene necessitates. And if you're shooting on location, you're probably taking away a lot more light than if you're on a stage. I think that the way I think about it on location, especially if you're like in New York City and there's a whole bunch of streetlights everywhere and shops, I start taking lights away before I start lighting. But yeah, I mean, they go hand in hand, so I can't say that there's one or the other. It's light and shadow, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. And we do work for the director. So depending on what our vision is, we can, express that certainly to the director, but ultimately, if the director goes, well, I'd really like to shoot it that way, well, that's it.
There was a moment where I had too little light, and the actor called it out, and that was pretty. Yeah, I still we added the fill. It was like a very narrow, through the window, intimate scene, and he asked where his fill light was when we were about to shoot, so I brought one in real quick, and it was still too dark. So I mean, yeah, never again.
Do you ever bring in a light because someone asks you to, and then you just dim it down to zero?
Yeah, it's there. It's doing something. Don't worry.
Any more questions? Here's Brandon.
So I've got two questions. I do mostly natural history and documentary work, so not so much narrative. But sometimes we do end up augmenting lights if we have a tabletop set or something, right? So my question is, what do you do? Well, two questions again. With the director and set deck and everything, is there a lot of back and forth about like putting in things on screen that justify light, and to like sort of make it so that you have something that can actually create the look that you're going for? And then two, what do you do when there is no justification for light? Like recently, I filmed something that was supposed to be underground, and I was killing myself trying to figure out how to make this look both realistic but also good on screen. So how do you approach those two sort of situations?
I mean, there's always a conversation. Like, you're always working very closely with the art department, especially for practicals. Like, you say, hey, I need a hat right here. And then they'll decide on, the aesthetic of the hat. But you tell them, I need a 9-inch hat over here, or a sconce over there, or a table lamp, and you can work it out with them. But that's always a conversation, constant conversation you're always having. I generally like to motivate my light, but sometimes you have to give, some creative freedoms. Generally, there's always a motivation for light. Like, where underground? Like, what scene are you talking about?
It was a reptile that had just been hatched from an underground burrow. So it's literally just in the dirt.
Okay. Would it be feasible that there's some light coming in from the dirt, like through a little hole up top or something like that?
What I ended up doing was I made a fake hole that
Yeah.
you could crawl out of.
Yeah, I would have done the same thing. Yeah. That's exactly, you justified it. Yeah.
So I would say, we're making movies, and so sometimes if it looks good but may not make a lot of sense, sometimes you go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in horror films.
Yeah.
Right.
Taking into consideration today's camera sensitivities and the things that you can do in post-production when it comes to color correction, how much of what you actually capture on camera turn out versus what you had envisioned versus what you actually do in post-production, and how do you feel about that, how that's going?
Well, I would say that I'm pretty old school with that, right? So I like to see on the monitor pretty much what I hope to see when it's the completed project. Obviously, there's always going to be color correction. There's no question about that. But whatever, there's a couple of things I like doing. I'll always put a Pro Mist filter, a black Pro Mist on the lens. I'll always shoot, well, I don't use the word always, but pretty much always. I'll always use my key lights with the Lee 188 gel. So, I'm baking that kind of stuff into the image, so that when it does come time to do the color correct, it's mostly there already.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sometimes you're working at such a pace, especially in TV, that you kind of have to know the post-production process and what you can do in coloring. Like, I may let go of flagging off a background and using the cutter just because we're running out of time, knowing that we're going to be able to just put a power window there and bring it down. But I try not to do that, But in TV, sometimes the pace that you're working is so fast. You have to know what you can get away with and do later sometimes.
Yeah, having faith in your colorist is. I've been done wrong before, but it's okay. I try and have the LUT on and work with post as much as I can.
Yeah. Having said that, like, pre-production, doing as many tests as you can, building your LUT with your colorist so that you can have that image while you're shooting on set is really, really critical.
How do you feel about LUTs and looks, like sort of like Anderson does? Wes Anderson, he uses it probably most effectively. But overall, what do you think of LUTs and looks? And if you do something like that, do you have those on your monitor when you're looking at, you program those into your monitor, you use those?
Yeah, I build a LUT for everything that I do. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like shooting on different film stocks, right? You have Fuji, you have Kodak, you have different 52, 1.8, 1.7, whatever, you know. They're all different, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I build a LUT for every single.
No, but the looks that are sort of artificially done, like everything's very green or everything's very, I don't know, stellar.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Specific look. Do you use that a lot, and how do you see that as helping your storytelling?
Well, it's a creative choice, right? Just like everything else. So, you have so many different creative choices that you're making when you're creating an image. You have lighting, you have color temperature, you have the color of your lights, you have the set design, you have the color palette that you're using, and all that adds to the cinematography. And the LUT is a different thing, just another thing that's working in conjunction with everything else that you're using to create that image. So I think it's imperative for everything that you do. Otherwise, you're stuck with a Rec 709 LUT, which is, you know, for me, it's very punchy.
No, I understand.
It's too contrasty, and I think it's important.
Making those choices, or you?
I am. Yeah, the DP is making these choices. Usually, I mean, it depends on the director. Some directors want to be really involved in the image, and that's fair, and that's fine. It's his film. And you just have to learn that you have to work with directors in a different way. And if the director wants to be involved in the aesthetic of the film, then you work with that director on that. Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say that the Rec 709 probably mostly replicates the Kodak color film. So I kind of tend towards that because it's something I'm comfortable with. But then again, as you're saying, you're gelling the lights, the production design's tremendously important, and everything else that you're adding to the scene.
Oh, I got a question. Do you guys factor in like different image sensors? You know, like Sony's tend to have a blue cast. Orion, Canon cameras have like an amber tint to them straight out of the camera. Do you factor all that in when deciding what equipment you're going to use to actually film with?
Oh, I do, but
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I tend to get stuck with whatever camera is available, but yeah, I guess it's important too, and especially depending on glass, what sort of tint, hue that has on certain skin tones and whatnot. So yeah, it's just important to do tests when you can with the gear that you want to use or you have available to yourself.
Owen, did you have something? You want to?
Yeah, I just had a question about the logistics of a night exterior. You know, when someone says night exterior, it can involve condors, it can involve running power for blocks. Can be depending on the scale, a logistically complicated setup. Maybe one of the more logistically complicated setups. And I guess my question is, you know, without blocking, without being there, what is your process for understanding that when you're in pre-production? What is your process for saying, oh, you know, like when you were talking about with Rami, there's a building, we could line up, you know, the light mats along the building. Like, what's the order of operations that you use to understand and break down something like a night exterior?
I mean, it starts with the scouts, right? I mean, you have a director scout first, and you go with the director and the production designer, and you talk about the scene and how you want to shoot it. And that's before you go out with the crew for a tech scout. So between the director scout and the tech scout, I go back and I create a lighting plan, so that when we go to the tech scout, I can talk to my gaffer, the key grip, you know, camera assistant, anybody who's on my team, and talk to them about how I want the scene lit. They then have their input, and we can just have more discussions about it before we put in the order for whatever scene that we're shooting. But, you know, I think that at my first, big night exterior, I was nervous, you know, I was overwhelmed until I realized that it's not anything I haven't done before. It's the same concepts. It's still a key light, a fill light, a backlight, a background light, you know. And sometimes you're just using bigger units, so you just have to understand Yeah, you just have to understand the bigger units and how big you need them for the distance that you're shooting, the light to the subject. So, but yeah, I mean, it's as long as you have the director scout that you can plan before you get to the tech scout, it makes a big difference. My biggest pet peeve is going on a scout, and it's a director scout and a tech scout at the same time. And you have like dozens of people standing around while you're trying to work things out with the director. And the director's all flustered, and you don't have anything figured out. And then you have to like step everyone off set, try to talk it through with the director, and then bring everybody back in. It just wastes a lot of time, in my opinion.
Angel, you?
Yeah, first off, thank you, Ben, for doing what you do. How do you stay inspired, and how do you keep evolving in
All right. Well, when the phone rings or you get an email that you got a job, that's a pretty big inspiration right there. That's a good one. I think you guys would agree that probably being a DP is like the best job.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the best job on the crew. You know, I mean, you speak and things happen. It's unbelievable, right? And so, you get to be the creative person, and I was a camera assistant for a number of years prior to being moving to being a DP. And as a camera assistant, everything is very black and white. You know, it's right or it's wrong. You got to stop in or you don't. You got this, it's not. You know, it's in focus, it's not. It's very regimented that way. But as a director of photography, everything is it's a choice. It's an artistic decision, that kind of stuff. So I think what inspires you is that freedom to be able to do that, especially if you happen to get a script and work with a director that you like. I've been very fortunate to work with some really great directors over the years and great crews. I mean, wonderful crews. I got one guy, Phil, was with me here tonight. Great guy we've been working with for many years. So I guess that's the inspiration, really. The being able to work with some really great people, and just I got to tell you, there's times when. It's 40 degrees out, it's drizzling, kind of rainy, and we got to put that 6K HMI out in the field out there. And you say, look, fellas, I hate to tell you this, but we got to put that light out in the field there. I know it's going to be, and they're like, yeah, Ray, okay, all right, sure, whatever you want, right? And that kind of a feeling that you get from that, that they'll do that for you, that camaraderie and stuff, it's great. It's a great feeling. So I guess that's the inspiration right there. You work with those kinds of folks.
Yeah, I think being on set, whatever aspect you can, and just like seeing how other people work, in moments when I myself don't have anything to do as a DP, I can like be on set with other people and see how they do it and draw inspiration from that. And then, maybe just watch some videos every now and then.
I think the number one thing is get out of your house. You know what I mean? Like, I've spoken to some film students who are, they know everything about film history, and they love certain directors, but they don't get out of their house, and they don't go to the movie theater, and they watch everything from home. They don't go to art galleries, they don't go to shows, they don't go to concerts, they don't experience life. Like, inspiration comes from living. If you're not living, then what story do you have to tell,
I think you all, in some form or another, talked about how budget influences the way that you film. Personally, when I'm working on like low budget stuff, which is all I do, I find myself taking on multiple roles. How do you find that like your process changes as budget increases or decreases? And is there a preference there? Do you actually sometimes prefer to have a smaller budget because you're more involved in those steps? I like having people help. When I've done shoots where it's just me or like maybe one other person, I feel like I'm the most spread thin and stressed. And yeah, just like the community aspect of working together is really nice. And especially if it's someone that you could trust, like you have a crew that you can trust, I think
that makes it a lot more fun to create.
Were you saying, you suggested that perhaps working on a smaller budget was possibly a good thing? I would say no. No, absolutely not. I would say as big
That's
a budget.
That's where we're finishing tonight. That's
Get the money.
You're right. I would say as big a budget as you can work on, that's the best.
Nice.
Because you need people, you need things. You know, I always like to have, just to be a little different, I always like to have a camera operator, right? Because I feel like I can step back and see what's going on and make sure nothing's, going the wrong way. I like to have a crew around me, people I can trust, something I can just say, hey, let's do this, and it happens. And so that happens, the bigger the budget, the more that can happen. So I don't know, does that answer the question?
I think that there's a bottom, right? I think that obviously necessity is the mother of invention, right? So when you have a smaller budget, you're just forced to make some decisions that you wouldn't do if you're on a bigger film. And sometimes these decisions aren't necessarily a creative decision. It's just you got to solve a problem. But I'm with Ray. I'd prefer to have more money and more people.
Sir?
I have a bit of a technical question, but what's your thought on the new EL zone, and does it differ from the current false color IRE system? Do you see it as like a standard in the future?
Are you talking about the Ed Lockman?
Yeah, the Ed Lockman zone. You guys have experience with that?
Yeah, I actually haven't used it on the full project. I mean, it's makes more sense for sure. It's more like, the Ansel Adams zone system, and it makes a lot more sense photographically. So I do think that that's something that should be picked up more, and I do think that it should be standardized into the future personally, yeah.
Just in case anyone doesn't know what they're talking about, is when you look at a video image on a monitor, you have IRE, which is a value from 0 to 100. And it talks about how much light is transmitting through the video feed. And Ed Lockman is this great cinematographer, and he invented a system that looks at actually f-stops instead of some kind of random electronic number. Because if you know about photography in Ansel Adams, he invented the zone system. If I get this right, 0 would be like pitch black, and 12 would be pure white, like white snow. And you kind of set your exposure. And then I guess I guess does the EL system like vary with the sensitivity of the sensor?
I think the 0 is 80% gray, and it kind of goes up and down.
Up from there. Yeah.
Talking about false color?
No, it's like a version of that, a new version.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. You'd see it on a monitor and you're like, oh, that's false color. And it's similar, but it's more based on photographic principles rather than, video signals, which is what
kind of ties back to
false
spot
color is.
meter in a way. Like when I took photography in college, they talked about if you have a gray horse against a black barn and you take out your 35 millimeter camera and you put the needle right in the middle, you're going to get like an 18% barn with an incorrectly shaded horse. And so then you have to kind of look at, okay, if that barn is white, I want the needle to go up, and if it's black, I want it to go down, kind of all like where it all lies up on it. So it's just another way of looking at that.
When lighting a shot and you're not too sure about whether something is a bit too exposed or not quite exposed, would you prefer to light something a little bit or expose something a bit too much rather than not enough?
I think you have to know you have to have a vision for what you're lighting before you get into anything. So, I don't really ever find myself in a situation where I'm doubting whether it's overlit or underlit. I think part of it, what I was talking about before, having a monitor that you can trust, especially for the night scenes when I'm exposing to like the toe, I can't trust a waveform that tells me that I have 10 IRE in there. I need to be able to see like how much I have detail in the image. So the only time I would overexpose is if I'm trying to have a thicker negative and make sure that I don't have any noise in my image. And sometimes I'll do that. I'll just put an ND3 in my matte box. I'll light to that, and then once I'm lit, I pull the ND3 and light it, and it's a one stop overexposed. And as long as nothing's clipped, you're going to have a nice fat image that you can then just bring down, and that'll reduce your noise.
Preserve the shadows.
Yep.
Right.
Awesome question.
Because coming up through the film world, we always overexposed the film a bit. You have that dense negative.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that, like, so I do stop motion animation, so this isn't quite like the same as the live action, but like I would usually, like me personally, the reason that I opt aside for exposing a little bit too much is because if I need to darken something in post, it's much easier from my experience to add artificial dark than artificial light.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what
absolutely.
he's saying with his ND3, kind of
Yeah.
light it so it looks darker, and then you take out the darkness.
That's a good gag. I never.
Yeah, it's a good gag.
Yeah, it's a good gag. I never heard that one before.
Everyone can borrow that. Questions? Questions? Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Oh,
Wait,
one more
wait,
question.
wait.
Bree. Yeah.
Looking, I know that watching your work and thinking people is probably very fun for you, but if you kind of look at what you just showed us, what would you improve upon, knowing that like budget, time of the day, crew is all the same? Like what, like, just like, what did you learn maybe from that, those shots that you did?
Good question.
Perfect.
Yeah, we nailed it because we're cinematographers.
What you're talking about, it's perfect. No, I hate looking back at the things that I shot because there's always something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. So many things. A lot of things.
Yeah. There's always something.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're learning every time the camera rolls. You're learning something, and it's you pick up stuff. Oh, why did I do that? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think specifically for mine, I always catch like the lens flare coming from a weird spot, like unmotivated, and the edge going over his back, and just some like little things. But otherwise, I guess I'm happy with the. It was all right.
And I think that's where budget comes in also.
Right.
If you have the time to just pay attention to what you're doing as opposed to, shooting 4, 5, 6 pages a day, you have less of that stuff happens.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that just last thing is like if you're not critiquing your own work and you think that your work is perfect, you're doing something wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
You have to critique your work. That's it.
Thanks, everybody.